Um, Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning or good evening, depending on where you are joining us from. My name is Beatrice, and I am the representative of the Division for Multilateral Diplomacy at the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, UNITAR. It is a pleasure to welcome you all on today's webinar named Women in International Organizations and Public Affairs, Skills for Successful International Career. Today, I'm joined by two of our esteemed experts, and who are experts in their respective fields, and they will share their valuable insights and experiences from the international scene, highlighting the important role of gender in their career. First, I'll start by representing Dominique, who's a Belgian and Egyptian national who joined the World Bank Group's legal department in 1992. Working in the sub-Saharan African region before becoming the special assistant to the senior vice president and general counsel. After that, she worked in the UNFAO's and IFAD's legal department in Rome, specializing in project financing for environmental protection and water management. In 1999, she returned back to the World Bank as senior counsel for Lebanon and other regional countries. And in 2004, she opened the first World Bank Group office in Tunisia and represented the bank until 2007. In 2010, she became the World Bank Special Representative in the United Nations in New York, managing the collaboration within the UN and representing the bank in various intergovernmental bodies. In 2016, she was appointed Director of Corporate Affairs and Administrations and in the Corporate Secretariat in the World Bank. Before joining the World Bank, she practiced European business law in Brussels and Paris, and she holds an international law from the University of Aix-en-Provence and European international law from the Université Libre de Bruxelles, and a certificate in common law from the University of Exeter. It is a very pleasure to welcome Dominique, and I'm just quickly introducing as well Maria, so I can pass the floor to both of them to open the discussion. Maria is an esteemed public expert and politician originally from Italy, with over 9 years of service in the public sector. In her roles over the past decades, including Vice President of the Italian Chamber of Deputies and a membership in the the Parliamentary Assembly of the Councils of Europe, she has been a driving force in promoting sustainable development goals and gender equality. Committees, including the Committee of Agenda 2030 and a Sustainable Development Goals, where she initiated comprehensive gender analysis frameworks for proposed bills and conducted impactful fact-finding surveys. As a member, she championed motions addressing violence against women while also overseeing labor contract reforms and recruiting processes as chair of the Personnel Affairs Committee. Known for her dedication to promoting gender equity and social parity, Spadoni is active in international forums and networks, advocating for women's rights and equal opportunities. With academic qualifications in foreign languages and linguistics and international cooperation, finance, and development, she has brought a wealth of knowledge and linguistics proficiency to her endeavors, making her a valuable asset in the global development arena. I will let my experts share more about their experience soon enough, but before we start our webinar, I would like to highlight that both UPEACE and UNITAR has partnered to offer a series of masters and certificates programs in the field of gender and development. Lastly, just before giving the word to my colleagues, I would like to go over a few housekeeping rules. The structure of the webinar will be as follows. Our panelists will give a short presentation about their experience in the UN system and other international organizations, which will follow by a Q&A session. You're all invited to ask the questions you may have and share your insights, concerns about the programs and about the questions of gender within the chat. And please note that the microphones have been muted to avoid any background noise. Therefore, you can use the Q&A function and ask any questions that might be interested to you. Kindly note that you don't need to wait until the end of the presentation to post your questions or comments, and we will address them in the Q&A session. I would like to give the word first to Maria, and then I'll give it to Dominique, which I'm very pleased to open this discussion, and thank you very much. I will be sharing my screen right now to be able for them to see. I think you are being able to see. And I will just quickly move, I think we said quickly move here, if I'm not mistaken. There you go.
Okay, so thank you very much, Beatrice. Thank you, UNITAR, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here today. So before jumping into my experience in international affairs as a woman, I'd like to highlight some skills or maybe some items that I would have loved to know before becoming a parliamentarian. So since I've been a parliamentarian for almost 10 years, Beatrice already told something about my my career. And so I decided after I finished my political experience to become a UNITAR consultant. And now, for example, I'm in Stirling for a workshop in leadership. So I prepared lots of workshops, and I'm going to show you some contents of the workshop I did for women, especially for women. So the first thing, and Beatrice, you can go to page 5, please. So the first thing I wanted to know before becoming a parliamentarian. Next page. No problem. So the concept of self-esteem. So when we talk about self-esteem, we talk about the evaluation that you have of yourself based on your abilities, skills, achievements, and sense of competence. Of course, this evaluation is more subjective and unstable because it is influenced by external factors such as success, feedback, and mood. So you can have it, but you can have high or low self-esteem, depending on the abilities and the skills you have in that particular moment. So there is a big difference between self-esteem and self-worth. Thanks, Beatrice. Okay. So self-worth, it's the intrinsic sense of value one has a person, regardless of your performance or achievements. And of course, this self-worth is supposed to be more stable and objective because it's based on the belief that you are worthy of love, respect, consideration. So I think that many people make a confusion between the two. And I believe it's really important to understand the difference between the two when you decide to have a leadership role in your career. So then I talk about also recognizing your strengths. Beatrice, you can go to the next page. Thank you. So I really think it's important for a leader to recognize what you're naturally good at, which are your potential strengths, which are your weaknesses, for example. So the self-assessment, the self-reflection is really important as you want to progress in your career, because of course, when you have this, you can also have that emotional intelligence, which allows you to be able to manage your emotions and to understand the emotions of others. So this skills is so important also in international affairs. I think this is one of the most important skills you need to have when we talk about, for example, negotiation processes. So one of the key points when you negotiate is try not to escalate, for example, the conflict. And having that empathy, which allows you to understand your emotions and other emotions, is really, really important. One tip which I can give is that if you are in a meeting and the situation escalates, if you can, just take a break. Because sometimes in order to manage your emotions, you need, to take a pause if you can. Sometimes you cannot, but if you can, take a pause and try to reestablish a smooth environment. And another advice that I can give it to you is to be able to, okay, Beatrice, you can just leave the slides so they can see myself, okay? Because now I'm thinking about something else. So can they see me?
I think they should be able to see you as well on the side, but I can share the screen if you prefer. Stop the sharing if you prefer.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it. That's better.
Yeah. Okay, better.
Okay.
So basically, another tip that I can give if we talk about international relations is also having the capacity to involved and to involve your, as I said before, emotional intelligence, but also cultural intelligence. In my personal career, I've seen so many meetings which went really wrong because the person didn't understand the cultural differences, like cultural values, cultural different aspects. And so they couldn't manage they couldn't manage the meeting at their best. So it's really important that who you're going to talk to, and also the norms that this person has, because they can be different from you. Usually we talk about, for example, high context or low context. So there are some cultures which prefer, for example, to talk about the family before going straight into the meeting. Other cultures are more direct, so they just want to go straight to the meeting and that's it. So always try to be, on one side, flexible when you have meetings in international organizations, and on the other one, please be respectful of other cultures or of other also time orientation, for example. So that's the best advice I think I can give it to you. Talking from a gender point, then Beatrice, tell me how many minutes I have, because I don't want to, like steal minutes from Dominique.
Okay, we have some time.
Thank you. So from a gender point of view, and of course, now I'm talking in general, not just within the international organizations or international jobs. For women, as women, it's really possible that you're gonna face more challenges, that you're gonna face more problems, and it's going to be more difficult for you. Because of many cultural questions, or because unfortunately there is a disparity between women and men also in a working environment. So the advice I give to you is try to communicate at your best. There is one thing called the double bind, which means that as a woman, you shouldn't be so aggressive in communicating. But on the other side, if you want to be assertive, and if you want to use an assertive communication style, the perception is that maybe you are too aggressive. So you should have just one communication style on one side, but on the other side, they also want you to be assertive. So try to communicate at your best. Try to, of course, respect others, and then try to candidate yourself. I've seen in my political experience that many times women don't they don't feel like they want to candidate for higher roles, for many reasons, personal reasons, many reasons. But it's important to have women at high levels, because as soon as a woman has a high profile, this woman is also an example for other women. So the more women there are, of course, the more chances there are that young women in the future will say, okay, if Maria Edera did it, that means that I can also do it. So please step in, try to do your best, work hard, but never be afraid to dare somehow. That's more or less my final suggestions. Let me see if I can have some tips. Well, of course, recognize and value your achievements and learn how to communicate assertively. Those are more or less the tips I wanted to give to you.
Thank you, Maria. Thanks so much. Maybe now I can just pass the word to Dominique, and then after the two presentations, we can start engaging to the discussion.
Thank you so much, and I'd like to thank you all, and especially UNITAR and University for Peace, to kindly inviting me today to join this very important conversation. I mean, it's a tall order to come after such an eminent speaker, Maria, all her, her journey, but also all her great tips. I must say I was nodding all the time because, clearly, even though we didn't compare notes, there are so many things that you heard from her that you may hear from me. And so again, really happy to join this conversation today. Look, I've been in international diplomacy for many, many years, and of course, I've seen the centrality of gender equality, in everything we do, and it's really cross-cutting. It's not a sector. It's really a cross-cutting issue, a vital issue, a pillar of the Sustainable Development Goals, and so it's in every discourse. But I'm really particularly happy to address this today from the angle of women in global leadership and what the skills are. It's one thing to talk about it; it's another one to actually do it. And so I must say it's a conversation I often have with colleagues at the World Bank Group, not just in mentoring junior colleagues, but also at the executive board. And we know that it's a global struggle to ensure gender diversity in executive boards. And at the World Bank, we have, for example, 25 members on our board. That means that you have 25 ambassadors representing 189 member states, only 4 are women. And this is a struggle. We keep pushing ministers of finance, central bank governors, all our member states. And so progress is very slow. So we are also looking at creating a pipeline for future leaders, meaning that we're also investing in more junior counselors to precisely help them shadow more senior women and give them the tips to grow in the institution. And so, look, we can look at things, with the glass half empty and to be very pessimistic, but we're also, we can also look at things with a glass half full and then really detect on the opportunities that we have for women and the importance of gender. I think Maria mentioned this earlier, but, each day we discover amazing, incredible, powerful, inspiring women across the world. I mean, on the World Bank, we have an incredible communications team. Each day they show us the journey of inspiring women. They are not famous, they're not on the global stage, but they're still game changers in developing countries, especially in fragile and conflict affected countries. And so it's something that we need to be reminded. Look, I know that there is a long list, of course, of skills that we can think of. I obviously don't have all the answers, but I can share, a few features, and you will see lots of commonalities with what Maria just introduced. But I think the first thing that I've realized early on is that things don't come to us. You need to go and get them. You need to be proactive. You need to have a strong drive. We don't earn things. They don't come our way. We need to detect opportunities and we need to seize them. And that really requires a unique set of skills, as well as a good dose of patience and resilience. And so obviously, working in the global arena means that you really need to have a good understanding, a good reading of the cultural environment in which you operate. You mentioned, my background. I have a mother from Northern Europe, a father from the Middle East, and I've seen this as a strength because it constantly forces you to think how the other culture is going to receive, your behavior. It's important to understand the other culture. It's important to leverage something that women really have, I believe, and very strong interpersonal skills. And that means that we can leverage these skills and try to bridge this cultural divide and bring down the barriers. And here, obviously, communication is key. That means, diplomacy. Communication is at the heart of diplomacy. And so active listening is absolutely key. You can't mobilize the floor, and I hope I will not in my presentation now, but really listening is key, and showing empathy. I found that absolutely central in international negotiations. The other sort of opportunity that we have today is obviously the opportunity to join so many networks. I know it takes time. It's an investment. It adds on your to-do list to be active on networks. But I think it means also that it's not just to stay in your own environment, in your own circles, but also to try to cross the borders, see what's going on in other industries. And of course, you have, again, so many platforms nowadays. I'll say, when in my experience at the bank or at the World Bank, at the World Bank or at the United Nations, the one thing I was always trying to do is to push my staff to get out of their offices and just move away from your screen, go out there, have coffees, meet with people, and because the corridor diplomacy is priceless. What happens, the conversation that's happening in the hallways is absolutely priceless. That's where you get the intel. I must say that, we did the experience of going entirely virtual with COVID, but the one thing that was missing was this dimension of informal conversation, informal gathering. And so connecting is key. And it takes effort. It's not coming too directly. The other one is, resilience and adaptability. Unless you're Taylor Swift, your career, international, to become a global leader is not going to happen in a single bullet. So we need to navigate, we need to overcome challenges. Sometimes we're stuck. There are times in your life where you think, oh God, I'm plateauing, I'm not making any progress, I'm stuck. Well, keep trying. And I mentioned the importance of having a strong drive. It's key. So just keep trying, and getting out of your comfort zone is absolutely helpful, because you're not going to just keep growing doing the same thing. Sometimes lateral moves, doing very different things, may surprise you and may actually get you closer to the top. So each step is really enriching. What I'm saying is really valid for men and women when you think about it, but somehow the environment in which we operate can be challenging. And of course, the more you get closer, the closer you get to the top, the fewer women. But I can really think of seeing more and more women. You were talking about the United Nations. Just amazing heads of institutions, the Deputy Secretary General, the World Bank, two of our managing directors are women, the head of the IMF is a woman, the head of the European Central Bank. We're seeing progress. It's slow, but just to say one thing, overcoming gender bias is not easy. And it takes training. to really understand what your blind spots are, your own biases, and to learn to see other people with an open mind, with respect. It's not just for ourselves, but when we create a team, it's important to create an inclusive work environment as well. If we want to promote women leadership, it's also about that. Now, as we all know, balancing professional demands with personal commitments is tough. And so work-life balance, though, remains absolutely essential. And if you think about, prominent women, global women leaders, they're incredible multitaskers. They're moms, they're wives, they're sisters. They have a life outside of their work. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It's a question of organizing, though. Now, leadership and negotiation skills. I think obviously you need to have a vision. You need to be very clear, to be able to inspire as well. And it's a lot at the same time, but it's a muscle that you can exercise, and it comes over time. It becomes your second nature. But it's clearly having a 360 approach to things, right? You need to have a clear direction. You need to know the risks that you're taking. At the same time, you need to make sure that everybody is on board. As Maria was saying, be decisive, be assertive. This is absolutely key. I would say that being a trusted partner is also something absolutely key. I mentioned listening and empathy, but being a trusted partner is key. And often, many years ago, now would be less the case, but I would find myself in international negotiations where I'm the only woman at the table. You can sense dynamics around the table, and you want to do everything so that they forget that you're a woman, and they really start listening for what you're there for. And so in a way, you need to double up to show that you're actually credible. And one way to do this is to be the problem solver as well. So it's about detecting opportunities to find common ground. It's not about shining. It's really about trying to make things work. In a way, you sort of get out of your woman canvas and you really put yourself in the person that's going to make a difference to come to common ground. And as Maria was saying also, just adjust to every environment that you work in. I've negotiated in Africa and the Middle East and Eastern Europe, Central Asia, totally different ways of approaching the conversation. And it's sometimes it's talking about really going out of your comfort zone. Sometimes you feel transported in a completely different world. But that's also what's making it very interesting. I think I mentioned being, a trusted partner. That's absolutely key. That means that you want to know what you're talking about. Your credibility is key. And obviously that means that you keep investing on, to stay on top of your technical skills, on top of your communication skills. And I must say that, for example, at the bank, when we try to groom, the next generation, we really invest indeed and learn how to speak in public, state your position, don't hesitate, try to be more assertive. Again, it may not come naturally to some people, but when you start exercising this muscle, you will find yourself, you don't even realize that you're speaking in public, and it's coming very naturally. So it is really within reach. I think, Maria mentioned, all the emotional intelligence and self-awareness, and obviously it's key to navigate the complexities of the international work environment. In a nutshell, you have to have a thick skin. It's really, we mentioned motivation, empathy, social skills, awareness, but you also have to sort and to graduate your reactions, your behavior. You will see how much we're completely aligned with Maria, but try new things. Don't hold back. This is something I must say, it took me a while to be a bit more daring. You hold your ideas and then they pile up. And then you realize, of course, one colleague is going to put it on the table. Everybody's going to think that it's a brilliant idea. And then you say, shoot, you know, it was also my idea. So too bad. So don't hesitate, don't hold back, because it is worth trying. So I'll come to a close now, but I think one more thing which I have witnessed in these international circles is to being positive is a source of power. And when I was ambassador at the UN in New York, it was just stunning to see incredible women walking in the room, and they had one thing in common, and they would exude this positive energy. They would come in with a huge smile, and the room was theirs, and that alone. And then people would go and listen to them. But that created an environment which I thought was extremely powerful. So look, it's a very, very long list of things. But the good thing is, you know, these things can make a difference. We're seeing now more and more women leaders and that are extremely inspiring. It's really a combination of skills. It's not one or the other. I would say it's not an end in itself either. It's really about leveraging these skills to make a difference. We're not just pushing for women to be at the top. We're pushing for women to be at the top because we know they can make a difference. And that's been demonstrated. Finally, my last thought would be, this is not a woman's battle. You know, the he for she movement, we cannot do this without men. I'm really lucky to be surrounded by, you know, male champions for gender equality. You have some at UN Women. You have a number of ambassadors that are also carrying the torch. So again, we're not in a competition. We're just trying to come to an even level playing field. I'll stop here and thank you so much.
Thank you, Dominique. Thank you, Maria. It was great to have that introduction and an overview of where we need to go and what we need to do. Now, just to take it further, I've seen very thoughtful questions in the chat, and it's been a lot of questions given there. So I'm just going to start slowly by opening the discussion with a few questions from the public, from the virtual public. And either of you can answer, maybe each of you can contribute with something to this questions. So the first one was addressed firstly to Maria, but potentially both of you can address it. And how can we determine and know the cultural values and differences of people, especially when meeting them for a first time? That was addressed to Maria, but maybe also Dominique has quite a lot of experience in that.
Okay, Dominique, do you want to go first, or it's okay if I start?
Either way is fine.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Well, first of all, how do you know? Usually you have a team. Well, okay, I'm talking about the political environment. Of course, Dominique will have maybe different contributions, but usually when you have a meeting, you have a team which tells you who you're going to meet. So the first thing to do is to know exactly who you're meeting. In high-level international meetings among politicians, for example, you have a dossier. And in this dossier, it's written everything. It's written where is this person coming from, the family, the socio-economical situation of the country, which are the relationships between Italy, for example, because I'm from Italy, and this particular country. So the first, it's really uncommon and unusual that in a political meeting, you don't have an idea of the cultural background of this person. So my advice, first of all, is to know to study this dossier, because I've seen quite a few meetings which went really not in a good way because the people didn't know each other. So my suggestion is really to study the dossier, study the person you're going to meet, and of course, study their cultural norms. That's my tip.
Thank you. Yeah, no, clearly, you know, the one thing when we set up meetings is to get a bio, the biographies of people you're going to meet with, and some can be very juicy because it's not just your academic background or professional career, but also, you know, what we call intelligence, things that you actually need to know, because they will help you sort of create that connection with the people you're going to work with. I would say that, you know, of course, you prepare your meeting, you prepare, you know, whether it's a meeting room or whether you travel to another country, you prepare you do your homework, but also you don't go in a room there and thinking that you know everything. So you're on your toes and you're ready to adjust. And so it's something that you actually prepare for the unknown. But again, the more experienced, the more equipped you are to just sort of shift to, you know, a lot of small talks and opening negotiations to going straight to business called, no, you know, barely a handshake. You can see very different things. Yeah, prepare is key.
Thank you both. Thanks so much. And another question, how can we address the underrepresentation of women in senior positions? I think you touched upon it a little bit, but maybe we can delve a little bit more with diplomatic services and international organizations.
I mean, it's something that's really, so looking at, you know, all the ambassadors, whether it's in Geneva, in Rome, I mean, with all the United Nations organizations, it's clearly something that you know, member states are pushing hard for. It is a priority for the United Nations, but also the IMF and the World Bank. I have no doubt the European Union as well, and so it is. So the global discourse is ready for it, but then it's about mainstreaming gender in everything, and again, it's not a sector, but it's something that needs to be, you know, part of every conversation. It's an uphill battle. I see it. We experience this on a daily basis. You know, we're trying to reach out to the well, first of all, we show that investing in gender is or smart economics. It's a global public good. It's a smart investment for countries, whether it's back home or on the international stage. This is number one, and then you derive from it the need to encourage countries to post more women. It's not easy. Because, you know, all these moves, all these positions are most of the time very political. And so that means that you need to build the pipeline back home of young women leaders as well.
Yeah, as Dominique said, it's really political when we need to address the differences. But of course, first of all, usually in politics, what you used to do was to propose some reforms about that. So in Italy, there was a big debate, for example, about the quotas. So like a president, or like, can we set like a percentage of female, which has to be like within the parliament, all these kind of items. I do agree with Dominique when she says that the gender has to be mainstreamed in almost every conversation. So we used to address that within the political parties. I remember that in politics, you can be divided in many questions, because of course politics is talking, sometimes negotiating, sometimes fighting. But when we talked about gender-based violence or about gender women's empowerment, usually you found a really important group of women, transversal, so from different political groups, who really fought for it. And what I really liked was also the I loved to involve also men, because I believe that if you want to really have a cultural change, you need to involve also men. So what I used to do in order to address it was, you know, to start to talk with my colleagues and saying, look, this is really important because, you know, if you have 50% of the society who doesn't have the same opportunities in order to work, to be able to work, then all the economic situation in Italy has a problem. So we need to address that. And I remember that my colleagues used to say, well, okay, Maria, you know, you know about it. You know, you always talk about this stuff. I trust you. I vote what you want me to vote. But for me, that was enough. So I completely agree when Dominique earlier said that the involvement of men is fundamental in this stage.
Thank you both. I would move to another question. We have quite a lot of questions, but we still also have time, so I think we're good. I was wondering, there is a very interesting question which was referring to networking, collaborations, partnerships, and what partnerships or networking arenas have been most helpful to you in advancing or promoting gender equality in your professions? How have you been navigating the different paths? And yeah, it's referred to both of you. So whoever wants to start.
Okay, I'll jump first. I mean, again, as I was saying earlier, it's not one silver bullet, right? It's really, you know, people either study or work, but you know, you have already a full day, and so you want to integrate this partnership networking angle in what you do, right? I mean, it cannot become well, some people are known, you can see some in the international circles whose job is just to network. And we also see them from afar, but it's not about that. It's really, as I was saying earlier, is about networking to enrich yourself, to detect new opportunities. And when you start, and then it can start snowballing as well. So it's something I would say, you know, as I mentioned earlier, detect every opportunity for engagement, for meeting. It's not going to happen on your screen alone. I'm sure, well, I'm older, so I'm sure there is a lot of networking happening online that I'm less used to. I probably have a very old-fashioned recipe, but I still believe that, you know, at least both would be very helpful, which means to go out there, to create opportunities, I don't have any particular platform that I would think of. I know that there are a slew, you know, and you know, the social medias out there, the LinkedIn and what have you. But I would say that whenever there is a training opportunity, a conference, a meeting, just try to follow up. You meet with people, you're interested, you need to follow up. It can be an investment, but the return is great too. And as I said, you start and then it's going to take you somewhere and you find yourself into a network that's becoming very interesting. So I'll stop here.
Yeah, network. I agree with Dominique. Meetings in presence are always the best choice. Of course, sometimes you cannot do it, but they're always the best choice. And also some platforms like LinkedIn can be really useful in finding new links, new persons, so that they're really important. Another thing also is another skill I would like to highlight, because usually English native speakers take that for granted, but also a big barrier can be also the language.
Yeah.
But you can have, if you know more languages, that's my personal experience, or if you know well English, it's always better to go to meetings without a translator, for example, because it's always better to have a direct conversation with that person, because interpreters are great professionals, but again, they will be between you and the other person. So if you can just learn other languages And of course, sometimes you can find yourself in some really annoying situation. I remember that once I found myself in a situation where I was sent to another country because I had to represent Italy in an international meeting. And basically, the country which organized that meeting decided to give me an interpreter without even asking if I needed or not, because I was from Italy. So you can also have this kind of stereotype, okay? So you come from a country and they take it for granted that you don't know English. So I remember there was pretty an interesting interaction, because of course then you have a kind of diplomatic issue between the two countries. But again, knowing more languages really can help you in diplomatic meetings, and presence is always better than online.
Thank you both. I was wondering can you share some which would have been the most impactful project that you have worked on or witnessed in your work, and what were the key takeaways? Potentially maybe can be related to gender, but just maybe as well in general, because your work was not only focused on gender.
Okay, so, well, my personal, my project, if I have to think about just one, for sure, it was the resolution about collecting data about gender-based violence at the PACE, at the Parliamentary Assembly at the Council of Europe. I remember that as an excellent experience. It took me 2 years in order to have a resolution. We performed fact visit in 2 countries within the COA. So I remember that as a great experience, and also it was really, I gained so much experience in talking to different people from different countries. And that was so important because, again, in democracy, in a parliamentary assembly, you need to get the votes. And in order to get the votes, I had to go to every country, just talk about resolution and tell, look, this is a really good resolution. We should approve it. Do you have any questions for me? And it takes a lot of time, because democracy is a slow process, that's for sure. But that was a really nice project, and then in the end it was approved in 2016. So I was really proud of that resolution.
So I would say that I had even small experiences which were actually groundbreaking for me early on. So, it's not just, towards the end of your career or journey that you do extraordinary things. Sometimes they're eye-openers early on in your career that are going to shape, your journey moving forward. And the sort of the most prominent one, or the one that I thought absolutely interesting, and it was the negotiations of the Sustainable Development Goals in 2015. That was absolutely massive, because it meant working on the entire development agenda, on the entire international financial architecture. It was about working with institutions, with people, with the member states, of course, with all the United Nations. It was really massive. It spanned over a couple of years, and it was interesting to see how the international finance community was working with ministers of the sector ministries, working with the ministers of foreign affairs, and all these people trying to come to 17 goals and 169 indicators. But I can tell you, the list to start with was way more than 17. It was a major achievement for people to try to narrow down all the global challenges and regional and national challenges and capture them in 17 goals. That I thought was fascinating. It reminds me, for something that just Maria said just now, it wasn't easy, and sometimes things can take time, but nothing is instant coffee. And how we how we're going to grow in our career, how development is going to happen, how gender balance is going to happen. It takes time, but we cannot sit on the fence and watch. You need to remain in motion, and so it's important to remember that very seldom do you have any sort of immediate result or immediate change. I should say at that time, the other big dimension was climate, the Paris climate negotiations. So it was all coming together. 2015 was a good year.
Thank you both. So many questions. I'm really struggling to keep up on time, but hopefully I'll try to wrap up most of them. There is another one, given just the time, making sure that maybe we have room for one or two more questions. But one of the participants is sharing his views on the fact that they've noticed a pattern where in a room with less women in senior positions, the admin tasks are pushed off to women setting up meetings, writing the minutes, etc. These aren't less important tasks, but are often expected to be done by women. How could you communicate assertively in such situations to avoid, let's say, given lesser in a way tasks? And how would you approach certain situations?
Go, Maria.
Well, yeah, in that situation, well, be assertive. Say what you believe it's not fair, and propose a solution. And use the I statement more than you. So that's what I would do. I mean, like, I believe that what is going on is inappropriate, so I would suggest to do this. So one day you do this kind of task, and the other day I'll do the other task. That's what I personally would do in that particular situation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, standing and whining is not going to change anything. So, well, typically the chair of the meeting normally should make an effort to have an inclusive meeting, and not just assume that, the women will sit on the back bench and then take notes. I mean, those days are gone. They should not be happening anymore. And I'm glad to see more and more, more junior people joining and including a lot of men doing administrative tasks as well. And if you look at Moneypenny, James Bond, those days of, having the QT administrative assistant, those days are gone. We don't want that anymore. We really want to give a chance to men and women to help. And I think it's important to count these people as real professional. It's not that you have two categories. I'm sitting at the table, I'm the professional, and then you're sitting in the back, you're the admin person. No, this is really something, you start on the wrong foot. So the chair typically should make an effort. Now, if you're in that position, clearly, as Maria said, be assertive and go and politely say, listen, you may not be aware, but I can actually help you with ABC. And then, because don't always assume that the chair will know that you're an engineer, you're a lawyer, just because you're starting young, you may be at the bottom of the ladder and doing basic stuff, but actually, you've done research, you've written, you've traveled, don't assume that people know all about your skills. I discovered that on a daily basis, that discovering amazing skills in people that, that they're not written on your forehead. And so it's important also, as you are assertive, to say, well, actually, I can help you with this, or you show initiative, and so that, you come also forward, and because we cannot assume only bad intention on the part of the chair. It's also maybe these people don't even know that you actually speak 4 languages. That would have been helpful. So don't hold back.
Amazing, thanks so much. And maybe final one or maximum 2 questions. How do you see the role of women in international organizations evolving over the next decade?
Well, I hope there will be, of course, a better situation compared to now. So again, I truly believe that the more women arrive at high levels, the better is going to be. So basically, the problem that sometimes we face is that maybe you have a high percentage of women, like within the institutions, but then they cannot break, not they like women, but usually it cannot be, the glass ceiling cannot be broken. So that's another issue I'd like to address, because again, in the institutions you can have a nice percentage, but then you need to answer yourself, why cannot the women arrive there? So in the future, if countries, again, of course, I have my political insight, but I believe that if countries will make efforts in order to improve the situation of women, and I talk about, for example, the welfare, I'm talking about the possibility for women to have children without having to resign. I'm talking about a good welfare also for elderly people, since we are going, well, at least I live in the second oldest country in the world after Japan, and usually it's always on women's back. So once the countries will find good legislative reforms in order to improve these situations, I see the future, of course, better for women.
Absolutely. And I think before we look at the top, investing in education is absolutely key. And we're looking at this, especially in developing countries, investing in girls' education is critical. So there's still a lot of cultural education challenges that we need to tackle. We should not assume that all the girls have the same access to education around the world. And then as we go up and as we invest in education, as Maria said, at the recruitment level, it's absolutely key to ensure that you have a good gender balance, geographic balance as well, especially in international organizations. And I know the UN is it's a very it feels very strongly about this. It's also a priority for the World Bank, and I have no doubt EU and other international organizations. But it also starts at, recruitment is key. And part of the recruitment is also what sort of package you offer to aspiring, to women applying. And indeed, flexible work arrangements, parent leave and so on, maternity leave, so daycare, things like that. So these are all barriers, one after one, we need to tackle. So it's slow, but I would say it's steady. So I like to be optimistic. I wish it were faster, but it's certainly going in the right direction, even if there is way more to do, especially in poor countries, in developing countries.
Thank you both. Thank you very much. There's been so many questions. It's very difficult for the time being, but for the sake of keeping within the 1 hour time frame, I would like to thank both of you for your participation, for the lively discussion. I'm sure everyone has really used that to put thoughts into this big discussion that has been around for a very long time. And just before we conclude this webinar, we would like to highlight that if you're interested in the master's programs, both in development studies and diplomacy, or the gender and development, we invite you to find out more information on our website and to contact our colleagues. We will be sharing a brief information of the webinar and all of the information that you might be more interested to explore. And I would like to thank again all of the participants and our speakers today. It was a pleasure to see so many discussions, so many participation. It has been very impactful and very interesting. It was my pleasure to also moderate this discussion. I do thank everyone for for attending and for being part of this open webinar. And I leave you here. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions. We're always open to have more and more discussions. And thank you again. I wish you a great day, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. And thank you again.